Deep in the central archives of the Galactic Intelligence Bureau, there exists a sealed record that requires 17 different clearance levels just to know it exists. The record itself, good luck with that. You'd need to be either dead or the Supreme Galactic Commander to access it, and the Supreme Commander isn't allowed to read it without first taking a specialized psychological fortification drug. Why all the security? Because it documents the only failure of Interrogator Zxivik, the most accomplished mind-breaker in the 17,000-year history of the Galactic Confederation. Now, mind-breaking isn't what you're thinking. It's not torture. The Confederation outlawed physical persuasion techniques after the regrettably messy Betelgeusian uprising. No, mind-breaking is a refined art performed by those rare individuals gifted with Class 9 psychic abilities. These individuals can navigate the neural labyrinths of any sentient species, extracting information with surgical precision, or so everyone thought. Interrogator Zxivik, the High Command requests your immediate presence, announced the communication drone, its synthetic voice echoing through the sparse meditation chamber where Zxivik was preparing for the day ahead. Zxivik didn't respond immediately. One does not rush a being who has broken 3,487 minds without a single failure. The Merxlian interrogator finished the preparatory breathing cycle, all 6 respiratory sacs fully expanded and contracted in perfect harmony, before acknowledging the summons with a slight movement of their upper left appendage. Inform them I shall arrive precisely when the tactical advantage of my presence outweighs the disadvantage of interrupting my preparation, Zxivik replied, each word delivered with the precision of a neurosurgeon's laser scalpel. The drone, programmed to recognize when not to argue, simply blinked its status light in acknowledgement and retreated. Zxivik rose from the meditation platform. Standing at nearly 3 meters tall when fully extended, their translucent exoskeleton revealed the complex network of neural enhancers and psychic amplifiers implanted throughout their system. These weren't standard issue. Zxivik had custom-designed each one after studying the neural weaknesses of every known sentient species. The corridors of the high-security intelligence facility parted before Zxivik, like supplicants before royalty. Not by automated design, mind you, but because even hardened military personnel preferred to avoid eye contact with the being nicknamed the Thought Extractor. Only 83% of personnel diverted their paths today, Zxivik noted to themselves. Fear efficiency is dropping. Perhaps I should request a public demonstration. The central command chamber was already filled with the Confederation's highest military officials when Zxivik arrived, exactly 11 minutes after the summons, as calculated to establish dominance without triggering resentment. Fleet Admiral Gorks, a hulking Praximian whose species evolved from apex aquatic predators, actually flinched when Zxivik's gaze fell upon him. Amusing considering Praximians feared nothing in the known galaxy. Well, almost nothing. Interrogator, the Admiral began, unconsciously shifting his massive frame away. We have a situation of unprecedented importance. You always do, Zxivik responded. Yet here I stand, having successfully extracted every piece of information from every subject you've provided for the past 73 cycles. Your unprecedented situations have become tediously precedented. The gathered officials exchanged uncomfortable glances. Only Intelligence Director Thrava dared to smile. Her species communicated aggression through facial expressions that resembled laughter in other species. We've captured a human, Thrava said, pleasure grimacing widely. For the first time in 43 years, Zxivik showed genuine surprise. 2 of their eye stalks extended fully, and the neural pattern visible through their cranial casing briefly flared bright orange. Humans, the newest species to stumble onto the galactic stage. They'd only achieved faster-than-light travel 14 years ago, yet already they'd caused more diplomatic incidents than species with millennia of interstellar presence. Reports classified their homeworld as a Class 12 death world, a categorization most sophisticated species thought was theoretical. "You captured a live human?" Zxivik's voice carried unusual modulation. "How many casualties?" 17 elite operatives, Admiral Gawks admitted. "And that was after we disabled their ship and deployed neural suppressants at 50 times standard concentration." Interesting. Very interesting. "What intelligence value does this human possess to justify such losses?" Zxivik inquired. Director Zxivik activated the central holographic display. "This is Commander Erill of the Human Defense Force. Intelligence suggests they possess complete knowledge of humanity's classified military capabilities, strategic deployments, and, most critically, their true intentions regarding the Orion Spur dispute." The Orion Spur. 17 systems of seemingly uninhabitable space that humanity had claimed with suspicious enthusiasm, triggering a territorial standoff with 3 elder races. The Confederation's diplomatic corps was baffled by humanity's insistence on territories with no apparent value. "You believe this human knows why their species is willing to risk interstellar conflict over worthless systems?" Zxivik's neural patterns shifted to analytical configuration. "We do," confirmed Admiral Gawks, "and we need that information before the human delegation arrives for next week's summit. The consortium is pressuring us to either enforce territorial regulations or grant them permission to neutralize the human outposts themselves." Neutralize. Such a pleasant euphemism for planetary bombardment. "Have standard interrogation techniques been attempted?" Zxivik asked, though they already knew the answer. 3 Class 7 interrogators tried. 2 suffered psychological breakdowns. The 3rd resigned his commission and has requested species reassignment surgery. Director Zxivik's grimace widened to show all 4 rows of her sensory teeth. The human apparently started psychologically interrogating them instead. Most disconcerting. "Most intriguing," Zxivik silently corrected. In 73 years of service, Zxivik had broken the minds of warlords, terrorists, crime syndicate leaders, and religious zealots from 142 different species. They had extracted information from beings who had evolved specifically to resist psychic intrusion. Once, they had even successfully mind-broken a quantum consciousness collective, simultaneously accessing the distributed thoughts of 11 physically separate but psychically linked individuals. But a human? This would be new. "I accept this assignment," Zxivik announced, not bothering to hide their eagerness. "Have the subject transferred to my specialized interrogation chamber. I require access to all existing data on human neural architecture and psychological profiles." Admiral Gawks looked uncomfortable. "That's problematic. The human hasn't left their containment cell. 3 security teams attempted transfer, and all were incapacitated." "Incapacitated how, precisely?" Zxivik asked. "They appear to have suffered extreme emotional distress. Many are requesting extended leave. One keeps drawing pictures of something called a teddy bear while crying uncontrollably." Now Zxivik was genuinely fascinated. "Very well. I shall conduct the interrogation in the human's current location, have my equipment transferred and ensure all surveillance is disabled. My methods require privacy." As the officials hurriedly complied with these demands, Zxivik accessed the preliminary reports on human psychology. Most of it was theoretical, compiled from intercepted transmissions and limited diplomatic interactions. One notation caught their attention. Warning: humans appear capable of self-modifying their psychological states through a process they call compartmentalization. Exercise extreme caution when attempting deep neural scanning. Self-modification without technology? Preposterous. Yet the warning came from a typically reliable source. 4 hours later, Zxivik stood before the specialized containment unit. Through the one-way transparency field, they observed the human for the first time. How underwhelming. The creature was so structurally simple. Bilateral symmetry, single head, 4 limbs, a basic design shared by thousands of species. This particular specimen was smaller than the reported average, with no obvious defensive capabilities. It sat perfectly still in the center of the cell, eyes closed, breathing rhythmically. Next to the human lay a small, worn object, a book of some kind. Physical information storage? How charmingly primitive. Zxivik activated their full array of psychic enhancers and prepared to conduct the most routine mind-breaking of their distinguished career. They had absolutely no idea it would be their last. Zxivik dismissed the 6-guard security detail with a dismissive flick of their secondary appendage. The guards, visibly relieved, practically sprinted down the corridor. One could almost hear their collective sigh of relief at escaping proximity to both the infamous mindbreaker and the unsettling human prisoner. Establish Level 9 privacy protocols, Zxivik instructed the facility's AI. No recording, no observation. Any attempt to breach these protocols will trigger an immediate memory wipe of all involved personnel. Understood, Interrogator, the AI responded. Privacy protocols engaged. Note, standard safety overrides remain in effect. Should your life signs indicate terminal distress, emergency protocols will activate regardless of privacy settings. That won't be necessary, Zxivik replied, with the confidence of someone who had never experienced failure. The cell's entrance irised open, and Zxivik stepped into the chamber where the human sat, still in that same meditative pose, eyes closed. The containment field shimmered, closed behind the interrogator. Commander Erill of the Human Defense Force, Zxivik announced, using all 3 of their vocal chambers to create a harmonically perfect tone designed to establish immediate psychological dominance. I am Interrogator Zxivik. I will be extracting information from your neural network today. The human opened their eyes. Just 2 of them. How did such limited sensory apparatus ever evolve to spacefaring capability? Those eyes fixed on Zxivik with an expression the interrogator's training identified as mild curiosity, not fear. Interesting. You must be the big gun, the human said in surprisingly perfect galactic standard. They usually save the scary-looking ones until the soft approach fails. Zxivik's neural patterns reconfigured. The prisoner spoke as if they were evaluating Zxivik, rather than the other way around. I am not a projectile weapon, Zxivik responded, deliberately misinterpreting the idiom to assert control of the linguistic exchange. I am the Confederation's premier psychic interrogator. I have successfully extracted intelligence from 3,487 subjects without failure. The human's face contorted briefly before emitting a series of rhythmic exhalations. Zxivik's translator identified this as laughter, a human response to incongruity or humor. Why was the prisoner laughing? Sorry, the human said, not sounding remotely apologetic. It's just, do you guys actually keep score? Do you have it on a coffee mug? Galaxy's #1 mind reader or something? This was not proceeding according to standard protocol. Subjects were supposed to be intimidated, not amused. Your attempt at psychological deflection is noted but ineffective, the Zxivik stated, moving closer. Their psychic receptors extended, beginning passive neural scanning. You will now answer questions regarding human military deployments in the Orion Spur. The human stretched casually, as if they were at a recreational facility rather than a high-security detention cell. Yeah, about that. The 3 guys before you wanted the same thing. One of them tried to be my friend, one tried to terrify me, and one tried to convince me he was actually my superior officer. Points for creativity on that last one. Zxivik decided to dispense with the preliminary approach. They fully activated their psychic enhancers, sending a precisely calibrated neural probe toward the human's consciousness, a technique that had reduced Codillac warlords to whimpering supplicants. The probe hit something like a reflective wall, and bounced back so violently that Zxivik physically staggered. "Whoa there," the human said, actually sounding concerned. "You okay? Your head tentacles just turned purple." Impossible. Absolutely impossible. No unaugmented biological being could repel a directed Class 9 psychic probe. "You have been trained in counter-psychic techniques," Zxivik stated, recalibrating. "Impressive, but ultimately futile." The human shrugged. "Nope. Never had any fancy mental training. Though I did spend 3 years in retail customer service during college. That'll build mental calluses like nothing else." Zxivik didn't understand the reference but recognized the deliberate attempt to introduce irrelevant information, a basic counter-interrogation strategy. They prepared a more sophisticated approach, one that had broken a hive queen of the Yith collective. Before initiating, however, Zxivik's attention was drawn to the small book lying beside the human. Their enhanced vision could now make out the simple words on its cover: Service Journal. "What is that object?" Zxivik inquired, indicating the book. For the first time, a micro-expression of concern flashed across the human's face. The reaction was so brief that only Zxivik's enhanced perception could have detected it. "Just my diary," the human answered with practiced casualness. "They let me keep it after determining it contained no hidden weapons, technology, or escape plans. Just words on paper. Practically Stone Age tech to you folks, right?" Most interesting. The human had revealed more genuine emotional response regarding this primitive information storage device than about their own captivity or impending psychic interrogation. "You record your experiences manually? For what purpose?" Zxivik asked, genuinely curious despite themselves. "Therapeutic, mostly. Military psychologists recommend it for processing combat experiences. Plus, my memory isn't what it used to be after that incident on Proxima B." Zxivik's interest sharpened. What incident on Proxima B? There was no record of human military action in that system. "I will examine this object," Zxivik declared, extending a manipulator appendage. "Knock yourself out," the human replied, sliding the journal toward Zxivik. "Though I should warn you, my handwriting is terrible, and some of the acronyms probably won't translate well." Zxivik lifted the primitive bound collection of thin sheets. Such an inefficient information storage medium, yet allegedly important to this prisoner who had already demonstrated unprecedented psychic resistance. A new approach formed in Zxivik's tactical mind. Rather than directly assault the human's mental defenses, they would first gain insights through this journal. Understanding the subject's thought patterns and experiences would create exploitable vulnerabilities for the subsequent psychic interrogation. "I shall review this document before proceeding," Zxivik announced. "Take your time," the human replied with a casual wave. "Not like either of us has anywhere else to be." As Zxivik began to examine the first page, they noticed the human leaning back against the wall with an expression their training identified as satisfaction. Why would the prisoner be pleased about Zxivik reading their personal records? The first entry was dated 5 Earth years prior. First day deployed to the frontier zone. Can't say much about location or mission parameters even in this personal log. Suffice to say, we're a long way from anywhere friendly, and the locals don't subscribe to the Geneva Convention, or any convention besides kill the soft-skinned invaders. Standard Tuesday for the 87th. Nothing particularly informative or strategic. Zxivik flipped forward several pages. Day 43. Lost Jackson and Moreno today. Ambush in the Northern Valley. Command says we can't retrieve bodies due to ongoing hostilities. Told the squad we'll go back when this is over. Everyone knows we won't. Everyone knows I'm lying. Everyone appreciates the lie anyway. That's leadership in the 87th, knowing which lies your people need to hear. Zxivik paused, processing this curious entry. The human described deliberate deception of subordinates as a positive leadership trait, most unusual. Day 67. Medical officer says I should be documenting intrusive thoughts as part of trauma processing. Fine. Here goes. Sometimes I think we're not fighting for anything real anymore. Just fighting because stopping would mean admitting those who died already died for nothing. Maybe that's reason enough. Zxivik's neural patterns shifted uncomfortably. There was something disconcertingly raw about these entries. The interrogator had accessed the private thoughts of thousands of beings, but always through the clinical precision of psychic extraction. Reading these voluntarily recorded reflections felt oddly intimate in comparison. Day 112. Operation Blackfish complete. Can't record details. Official casualty count, 17. Actual, 134. The difference will never exist in any official record. The screaming in my head has its own filing system, though. Zxivik looked up from the journal to study the human, who was now examining their own fingernails with apparent fascination. This unassuming creature had commanded an operation resulting in 134 casualties, and apparently carried the psychological weight of those unacknowledged deaths. The interrogator returned to the journal, flipping forward to entries from approximately 1 Earth year ago. Finally received deployment orders for the Orion Spur outposts. Command briefing consisted of exactly 7 words. Ensure the asset remains secure at all costs. When I asked what the asset was, the general actually laughed. Said if I need to use it, I'll know. Great. Another suicide mission protecting something I'm not allowed to understand. Zxivik's eye stalks extended fully. This was precisely the information the Confederation sought. What was this asset humanity valued so highly in the seemingly worthless Orion Spur? The interrogator turned the page eagerly, only to find nothing. The next 10 pages had been torn out. The journal resumed with an entry dated just 2 months ago. First contact with non-human intelligence today. Not supposed to record this. Don't care anymore. They weren't what we expected. Nothing is what we expected out here. If Earth knew what we've found, what we're guarding. But that's the point, isn't it? Earth can't know. Not yet. Zxivik felt a strange sensation in their neural network. Something approaching unease. Impossible. They were incapable of such primitive emotional responses, yet something about these fragmented accounts was disturbing in a way that defied rationality. The interrogator glanced up again at the human, who was now watching them intently. Finding it interesting? The human asked with an expression Zxivik couldn't quite interpret. Your accounts are fragmentary and lack strategic detail, Zxivik responded dismissively. However, they may provide context for the information I will extract directly from your neural pathways. The human's face configured into what Zxivik recognized as a smile, though it contained no warmth. Sure. Context is everything, isn't it? Keep reading. It gets better. Zxivik returned to the journal, their discomfort growing with each page. What had started as a tactical approach was becoming something else entirely, a journey into a mind unlike any the interrogator had ever encountered. And somewhere deep in their highly advanced neural network, a small alarm began to sound. Zxivik settled into a more comfortable position, their exoskeleton reconfiguring to support extended reading. The human watched with that same unsettling not-quite smile, as if they were the interrogator and Zxivik the subject. Absurd notion. The next entry made Zxivik's neural patterns stutter. Day 341 of Orion deployment. 3rd incursion attempt by unknown entities. Not the Confederation this time. Something else. Something worse. Deployed the Mercy Protocol. God help me. First time I've had to give that order. The crew doesn't know what it means. They think it's just another defense system. Only the command staff knows Mercy stands for Mass Emergency Reality Containment Yield. Mass Emergency Reality. Containment Yield? Zxivik had never encountered this term in any intelligence briefing on human military capabilities. The very phrasing suggested technologies beyond human development level. The screaming stopped after 11 minutes, not because they died, because they never existed. Temporal erasure at the quantum level means they weren't just killed, they were removed from having ever been. 27 sentient beings, gone from the fabric of reality itself. And I'm the only one who remembers them because of this damn implant command put in my hippocampus. Zxivik involuntarily touched their cranial ridge. Temporal erasure? Quantum-level manipulation? Hippocampal memory implants resistant to timeline alterations? Impossible. Humans were classified as a technology level 7 species. These capabilities would require at least level 11. Day 372, second nightmare, where I'm back in the Proxima B caverns. The walls were bleeding light again. The physicist keeps insisting what we found down there isn't alive, can't be alive by any definition we understand. Yet it responds to stimuli. It learns, and worst of all, it remembers. Command named it the library. Proxima B. Again this reference. Zxivik accessed their encyclopedic memory. Proxima B was an unremarkable exoplanet orbiting the star nearest to the human homeworld. Confederation surveys had classified it as a standard rocky world with minimal strategic value. There was certainly no record of anything called the library. 3 more crew displaying symptoms: memory degradation, temporal displacement syndrome, episodic reality dissociation. Medical has no treatment protocol for exposure to non-linear time artifacts. How could they? According to official records, such things don't exist. According to official records, we're just guarding mining operations. Sometimes I wish I could believe the lie. Zxivik looked up sharply. The human met their gaze steadily. This is fiction, Zxivik stated flatly. An attempt to mislead Confederation intelligence with fabricated technology claims. The human shrugged. If that helps you sleep at night, sure. Though I don't actually know if your species sleeps. Do you dream? Do you experience continuity breaks in consciousness? Or maybe the better question is, how would you know if part of your reality had been erased? Preposterous philosophical baiting. Zxivik returned to the journal, determined not to be distracted by the prisoner's mind games. Day 415. The library is growing again. Every scan we take shows it expanding by approximately 0.03% daily. The quantum entanglement field now extends 3 kilometers in every direction. The physicist says it's incorporating new information. Reading our reality, she says. Learning our universe like it's some kind of book. When I asked what happens when it finishes reading, she just looked at me with those empty eyes and said, "Then it closes the book." Command's response: asset must remain secure at all costs. Thanks for that insight, Command. Zxivik felt something unprecedented, a tremor in their neural pathways. Was this fear? Ridiculous. They had extracted information from the minds of genocidal warlords without experiencing emotional contamination. Yet these simple written words were causing a physiological response. Day 433. New theory from the science team. The library isn't from another place. It's from another time. Our time, but so far in the future that causality itself has become malleable. It's not invading our present, it's remembering its past. Our present is its history book. The implications are too much to process. If they're right, then everything we do is already known, already recorded, already part of the library's archives. Free will becomes an illusion, or maybe a story it's already read. Zxivik flipped forward several pages, feeling an irrational need to distance themselves from these entries. Day 501. The library spoke today, not with words, with probability. Quantum fluctuations forming patterns too precise to be random. The linguistics team says it's trying to communicate using mathematics as a universal language. The message, when decoded, was just 5 words: "We have always been here." I ordered all communication attempts ceased immediately. Command concurred for once. Some dialogues shouldn't be started because they can never be finished. Not in one lifetime, not in 1,000. The human shifted position slightly. Getting to the good parts, I see. Zxivik ignored the comment, turning to the final pages of the journal. Day 550. Final entry. We're being reassigned. The Confederation is getting too curious about our activities in the Orion Spur. Command is implementing Operation Black Book, total information compartmentalization. Each crew member will retain only fragments of what we know, what we've seen. Memories selectively erased, replaced with cover stories about mining operations and territorial disputes. Only command staff keep full knowledge, stored in these analog journals that can't be hacked or psychically extracted without our cooperation. Digital trail erased. Even our own people will believe the cover story. It's kinda that way. One last thought before they take me in for the memory procedure. The library is watching us. Not with malice, not with benevolence, with the patient curiosity of a reader turning pages in a history book, knowing the end is already written, but enjoying the journey nonetheless. If you're reading this, whoever you are, understand one thing. Humanity hasn't claimed the Orion Spur to exploit it. We've claimed it to contain it, to protect you, to protect everyone from what's inside. Some knowledge doesn't set you free. Some knowledge breaks minds. The journal ended there. Zxivik closed it slowly, neural processes churning with implications. If even a fraction of this account was accurate. Now you have context, the human said quietly. Ready for that mind probe thing you do? Fair warning, you won't just be reading my thoughts. You'll be connecting to memories of the library. And it might notice you looking. Zxivik's vocal chambers produced an involuntary harmonic of distress. This is an elaborate deception. Is it? The human leaned forward. Then why am I so calm about you breaking into my mind? Why would Command send me, knowing I'd be captured, with a journal containing our biggest secrets? Unless the journal itself is the weapon. Not against the Confederation. Against anyone who tries to force their way into the mind of someone who's looked into the library. The human tapped their temple. You're not afraid of what I know. You're afraid of what knows me. 3 days later, Director Thrava stormed into Admiral Gawkes' office without announcing herself, a breach of protocol that instantly signaled catastrophe. Have you seen the report? She demanded, her pleasure grimace completely absent. Admiral Gawkes' gill flaps pulsated with anxiety. Interrogator Zxivik's resignation. Yes. Most troubling. Resignation? Thrava slammed her appendage on the Admiral's desk. That doesn't begin to cover it. They've requested complete neural reconfiguration, species reassignment surgery, and permanent exile to the Outer Rim. Our most valuable intelligence asset, destroyed. What exactly happened in that cell? Gawkes asked. No one knows. Privacy protocols were in effect. All we have is the official statement Zxivik filed. She projected a holographic document between them. Official record. Subject proved resistant to standard interrogation. No actionable intelligence obtained. Recommendation. Release human prisoner immediately. Cease all investigation into Orion Spur activities. Reclassify human species from technology level 7 to technology level undefined. Addendum. I hereby resign my commission, effective immediately. The mind that has seen cannot unsee. The knowledge that breaks cannot be unbroken. And now the interrogator has locked themselves in a sensory deprivation chamber, refusing all communication, Zxivik concluded. Their last coherent statement was, and I quote, "Reality is a library, and something is reading us." Admiral Gawkes's chromatic scales shifted to the deep blue of decision. Release the human. Without gaining any intelligence, the High Command will— "The High Command wasn't in that room," Gawkes interrupted. "Whatever Zxivik encountered was enough to break the greatest mind-breaker in Confederation history. Do you wish to risk worse?" 3 hours later, the human prisoner was escorted to a diplomatic shuttle. As the commander prepared to board, Admiral Gawkes approached with forced casualness. "One question before you depart," he said. "That journal, was any of it true?" The human smiled. "The greatest defense isn't having powerful weapons. It's making your enemies think you have powerful weapons they can't comprehend." With that cryptic statement, the commander boarded the shuttle, leaving Gawkes wondering if humans had mastered reality manipulation technology, or simply the far more devastating art of psychological warfare. One standard week later, the Confederation formally recognized humanity's claim to the Orion Spur. The official reason cited was respect for emerging species territorial development. Unofficially, no Confederation intelligence operative would go near a human mind again. In a secure medical facility on the edge of known space, former Interrogator Zxivik stared unblinking at the ceiling, mind replaying the final moment before their psychic barriers shattered completely. It wasn't the journal that had broken them. It was the brief, catastrophic mental contact with the human officer's mind, and the utterly impossible discovery that everything in that journal had been an elaborate fiction. Everything except for one detail. Humans really did have something in the Orion Spur that needed containing. Something ancient and patient. Something that had noticed Zxivik looking. And somewhere in the depths of the Orion Spur, in a cavern that technically didn't exist according to any official record, a quantum anomaly expanded by exactly 0.03% as it added one more observer to its growing consciousness. The library had gained another reader.